guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me here, Comrade Lavender, and today I'm back with another deep dive video. Today I'm doing the hair trade. This includes like hair extensions and human hair wigs and the Salon Industry Files, a deep dive into this political activism topic. So let's get started into this YouTube video. So yeah, when you think of hair extensions or real human hair wigs, the first things that come to mind are probably the visual aspect. You might think of the freedom they bring to switch up your hairstyle, etc. However, they're popular among ordinary working women and even teenagers. An average visit to a hair salon for hair extensions in America costs around $500 to $2,000. Up to 10,000 hair extensions are exported to the United States every week, according to some statistics. If there's one business in Britain that's bound to see its hair extensions, sales are up to 60 million pounds a year and growing. More than 38 million worth of hair, human with some mixed human and animal hair, entering the country, making the UK the third biggest importer of human hair in the world. The UK extension industry is booming, with hair extension companies claiming it is worth between $45 million and $65 million or pounds or whatever. The global supply of human hair, a billion-dollar industry for wigs, weaves, toupees, and more that relies on hair pickers who gathered discarded strands from the streets and drains to make ends meet. Most hair comes from countries where long natural hair remains a badge of beauty, but once again where the women are poor enough to consider selling a treasured asset. Working class women's hair is used to bedeck the head of those who are more privileged and rich. It's been going on for hundreds of years. Outside of the black community, wig wearing among white women was almost exclusively reserved for fancy dress parties, religious practices, or as a solution for hair loss. Wigs previously held connotations of beauty deception, masking your identity, or false advertising, but in the last 10 years, attitudes have rapidly changed. For many, wigs have now become the new handbag, a carefully curated accessory worn to elevate any outfit or go to any events. While black women have been wearing wigs for decades, think Little Kim and Nicki Minaj, the hair industry experienced serious growth when celebrities such as Paris Hilton and the Kim Kardashian family clan began normalizing the practice among white women. When it comes to the hair picking trade, much of the hair on sale comes from small agents who tour villages in India, China, and Eastern Europe, offering poverty-stricken women small payments and a small amount of payments to part with their own hair. As one importer based in Ukraine told the New York Times recently, they are not doing it for fun. Usually only people who have temporary financial difficulties in depressed regions sell their hair. More worrying, back in 2006, the Observer reported that in India and some parts of India, husbands were forcing their own wives into selling their hair and blackmailing them against their will. Some children were being tricked into having their heads shaved in exchange for toys, and in one case, gangs stole a woman's hair, holding her down and cutting it right off. For the sake of money, people even resort to armed robbery of hair by criminals with a view to make a quick buck from virgin hair. Dreadlocks can take many years to grow, and sew-in-ready locks are in high demand and on the black market. The market for dreadlocks has instigated a string of hair thefts in South Africa. Johannesburg gangs have become known for their cut and runs by selling shoulder-length dreadlocks. Hair thieves can earn between $23 and $58, while longer locks can be sold for as much as $230. Jack Mersina was robbed by 3 men in South Africa. They wanted his dreadlocks. He had spent 3 years patiently cultivating and growing. They cut off my hair with scissors. I still feel pain when I think about that night, the Zimbabwean tells the BBC. The victims of capitalism, some of them choose silence in their helpless fight against this traumatic event. Every evening for 2 to 3 hours, people from India gather in a quarter of a marketplace in the city of Nagpur in central India. The area is severely impoverished. Some of the people are in charge of the polythene bags filled with human waste hair. These strands come from combs, shower drains, and waste bins. They are bunched together that many people discard without further thought. But in India, they are precious. Waste combings are a prized commodity, enabling families to put food on the table. Women in low-income households gather up and keep this hair to sell to hair collectors. A 500-gram hairball, for example, which may represent 1 to 3 days collected combings, may yield 500 rupees, about $7 in American money. The buyer pays half up front and promises to pay the rest if the seller returns in the future with more hair. The amount that could help a woman not only buy cheap houseware such as plates or spoons or silverware, which she can trade later, but also a day's worth of milk and vegetables or groceries as a whole. Little do they know that the hair they sell can take on another life once it passes out of their hands, potentially gaining immense value as it travels up the supply chain from hand to hand. As many consumers can attest, buying a hair piece, whether wigs, weaves, extensions, or toupees, can be an expensive prospect, but few people know the sources of these products. Scholars who study the hair trade would agree that ignorance is no accident. Hair may be coming from people who are poor or may have different hygiene standards, so it is in the best interest of the trader to keep the source invisible. While the hair trade is legal, it is entirely unregulated, and there are many murky ethical areas. Some companies mix animal and synthetic fibers with human hair, selling it as 100% human hair, and the people gathering and untangling hair often live in extreme poverty. Globally, the industry is worth more than $1 billion, more than 200 million in India alone. India is the second largest exporter of human hair after Hong Kong. The majority of India's export is waste hair. Like the hair strands, as hair changes hands, it may be treated in ways that enhance its own value. At factories, for instance, and for example, men and women measure hair for length, run it through purpose-built combs, remove the lice and gray strands, and sanitize the product, the hair, and chemicals before packing it back up for export. Factories are not sharing their sources or processes to both remain competitive and avoid any messaging that might deter buyers put off by waste hair from impoverished communities. Such secrecy ultimately makes it easier to exploit laborers at the bottom of the supply chain. Not only do they receive a fraction of the payments associated with the hair they collect, their work can be physically taxing. The labor in hair collectors and sorters, include factory workers, is repetitive and monstrous, taking its toll on backs, eyes, and lungs. Women in particular are disadvantaged. The gender bias in the hair trade industry is striking. Among collectors, it is women who walk 7 to 8 hours along with their kids and untangle the hair at home. At factories, women are in charge of immense and lengthy processes such as sorting and cleaning strands. They do the harder work than the men. Some more victims of capitalism include Scravi, 39 years old. A woman from Cambodia explains that her hair used to be down to her waist. That was before hair traders offered her just $15 to sell it. I feel regret every day for cutting my hair off. I don't feel made up, she told NBC News. Cambodian hair has particular appeal to black women, said Janice Wilson, an African-American woman who ran a business collecting hair from women in Cambodia that she then sold to the United States and internationally. There is a variety of patterns, and it varies from straight to tightly coiled, Wilson said, adding that she stressed the variety in texture as compared to hair from India. The international resale value for hair claiming to be raw Cambodian hair can start as low as $100 for 12 inches of loose hair in a bundle to over $300 for longer lengths, also in a bundle. Van Siram, 33 years old, lives in the same community as the other victim of capitalism. Her hair used to be waist-length. When the hair traders offered her $25 for her first hair sale, she took it, using the money to send her youngest children to school. The money didn't go far. After my school, my children go to the temple and beg for money from tourists, she said. She's a scavenger and struggling to provide for her 3 children since relocating to this district. She said school costs about $8 per month per child. For women here with such little means, their hair can at times serve as an insurance policy, backup plan, and rainy day fund. I will sell it again if I don't have money. Liam Kim lives across the street from that woman. Her hair is too short to hold into a ponytail, mainly because she had recently sold it for $30. The traders told her they were going to resell it to salons. I need the money, so I have to sell my hair. They just cut it from behind. Just chop, 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 she said. Now onto the problematic things in the hair salon industry and hair styling industry as a whole. The environmental costs of salon ownership. The beauty industry produces over 421,000 pounds of waste daily. Salons across the United States will contribute more than 150 million pounds of unrecycled foil, toxic chemical waste, and plastic bottles to landfills, water systems. Each time a stylist washes their client's hair, more than 45 gallons of water are contaminated, with an average of 12 clients a day. With water waste in the salon industry is outrageous. There are about 700,000 hairdressers in the United States alone. More than 90% are women. A third of them are black or Hispanic or Latina, and they work with a variety of hair care products. Salons have a distinct smell, usually a combination of bleach, perm, and pneumonia. that riddles the air that stylists and their clients breathe in all day long. Studies have shown the stylists are exposed to toxins linked to higher risk with female reproductive disorders, as well as had a significantly increased chance for bladder cancer. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University studied 4 women of color and found that compared to office workers, Black and Hispanic hairstylists and dressers had higher levels of chemicals in their urine. Some of the chemicals were well known to scientists, but others were not and were a complete mystery. Stylists of color often work with products like hair straighteners and dyes, which could be toxic. Salon workers are increasingly becoming victims of wage theft. According to the New York Times, the number of hair salons in New York and the surrounding states and areas are now defendants in 3 separate class action lawsuits claiming they had failed to pay minimum wage for the employees, failed to pay overtime compensation, and failed to maintain accurate work logs as time cards for many of their employees, all violations of state and federal labor laws. In another case, a class of more than 100 current and former hairstylists employed by a group of hair salons operating as a single enterprise claimed they were cheated out of overtime compensation by misclassified as sales employees. They are seeking more than $5 million for wage theft and hour violations and damages. In hair salons, racial segregation never really ended. I can honestly say some of the worst experiences I've ever had were from the salon hair industry. Just because something is commonplace does not make it okay. Like if it's common practice, commonplace, common practice, it doesn't make it okay. Especially when an unjust practice, hair discrimination, according to someone who worked in the industry where I got this article from, there was a waiting list with over 1,000 people and styling books that were completely filled to the brim. This was a small business with a dedicated base of customers willing to wait nearly a year to get their hair transformed at the hands of these trained professionals. Something shocked her. As if typed out of habit, every client who was black and had black hair in their profile had the word N-O beside their name in big, bold, all-cap letters. Many stylists are not required to be trained in all textures of hair, and many salons don't employ those who know how to work with curly, coiled, or textured hair as a whole. This is entirely unacceptable. Some salon owners and stylists assume the stereotype that black hair is unmanageable, while others just blatantly refuse service. The woman who is talking about this got a promotion to director at the salon that she works at, and the salon she works at, according to her, does not welcome black patrons or black customers. Their policy requires that all new clients send in a picture of the hair to get on the wait list, and since the beginning of her employment, she has outright been told to send black women, textured hair or not, any black woman, to a black-owned salon down the street. The salon does have clients of Indian, Latina, and Asian descent, but they refuse to do black women's hair only. She can't publicly name the salon due to her employment at this time. The issue is bigger than just one place. You can't completely bar an entire race from your salon establishment due to the inadequate training and then defend your actions with rebuttals like, I have friends or employees of color who work here. There are plenty of white women with curly, coarse, thick hair who are able to have their hair strands colored here at the salon. So what's the excuse again? When clients emailed her to ask why they only see blonde women on their Instagram page and white women, I'm ashamed to have to fabricate an answer that doesn't disclose the full truth, that I work for a business so blatantly in its disrespect for black women. This ignorant and blatant segregation of hair types is all too commonplace in salons around the world. This modern-day segregation can't be normalized or swept under the rug. It should be called out every time you see it. Another victim of capitalism and this form of racism, Demillion Matthews knows the struggle firsthand. Matthews, who is white and native indigenous, has 3 children with her African-American husband. She recently sent her 2 oldest, ages 7 and 5, to a regular salon, a supercuts with her 21-year-old niece who is white. A white stylist grumbled under her breath that the children's face should have been disclosed when the appointments were made because we don't cut black people's hair here. Matthew said, while service wasn't denied, the remark and others like it made by the stylist led to her termination and an apology from the salon. The part bothered me the most is that there were 2 other stylists standing there. Neither one of them said anything nor reported it, Matthew said. It's heartbreaking. Such stories are not uncommon, from outright refusal to botched treatments and cuts by stylists who don't know what they're doing. They are reluctant to say so, fearing legal retribution out of embarrassment. Some cosmetology schools include educators with experiences on a range of textured hair, but they're often systemated by other priorities. While textbooks include pages on all hair types, students said highly textured hair is often barely mentioned during training. Mannequins of color are not routine. It's possible to receive a cosmetology license, a process conducted by the states without ever touching a black head. Kayla Nack-Langroth, 23, of Albuquerque, New Mexico, is enrolled in beauty school near her home. They don't really tend to teach black ethnic hair, said her, who is white. She would like to learn how to do black hair. I don't really see why there seems to be such a big lack of education on black hair and types. Tammy Joverid, a PhD candidate at Walton University, studies the psychological roots of biases against natural hair and how these biases affect communities of color. She's also a Houston hairstylist who specializes in working with curly hair, particularly black hair. This image provided by Kayla Nagraco shows Nagraco, a beauty school student from Albuquerque, New Mexico, posing for a photo with her cutting shears. People of color in the industry trace bias and discrimination in predominantly white salons to sidelining of formal education focused on black hair. Horror stories are not uncommon, from outright refusal of service to botched treatments and cuts by stylists who don't know what they're doing. Cosmetology programs typically only teach styles and looks. For people of European descent, this serves as a tactic of segregation against African Americans. If the salon stylists do not know how to do black hair, then the business will not have to serve black people. Students at Paul Mitchell School, another top name in the Cosmetology Education Center, have made similar complaints. The schools, most also independently owned, recently announced the initiative aims at including all types of hair, standard learning, not specialized. One of the changes is getting practice dolls with a wider range of textured hair, said Paul Mitchell brand ambassador John Mosley, a black barber in Dallas. Now I want to talk about the hair washing products like shampoo, conditioner, dry shampoo, etc. for instance. History of colorism and racism that has repeatedly emphasized the Eurocentric beauty while degrading the physical features of black women as a whole. In order to adapt to white standards of beauty, many black women use hair relaxers to straighten their hair because their hair is curly and they want to straighten it. They flat iron their curly hair using heating tools that can cause excessive damage to natural hair, or they use shampoo marketed towards black women to smooth their curly hair texture. Additionally, certain hair products marketed towards black people with the intent of improving their hair textures contain carcinogens and hormone-disrupting compounds such as parabens. These chemicals can cause decreased fertility and an increased risk of developing breast cancer. These problematic marketing strategies are extensions of modern-day institutionalized racism, in which a dark skin tone is perceived to be at the bottom of the racial beauty hierarchy. This hierarchy gives the most value to white women with blonde hair, or ginger hair with blue eyes or green eyes, and the least amount of value to women of color. The fact that many of the products marketed towards black women contain more toxic chemicals than other products is another example of structural violence and racism. About 40% of beauty products on the market are categorized as low hazard, but fewer than 25% of beauty products marketed specifically towards black women are considered low hazard. Black women have access to fewer non-hazardous products which manifest in more harmful health effects. What's worse, cosmetic companies perpetuate this structural violence when the health and lives of black people are not prioritized. Black women who use lye-based hair relaxers are at least seven times a year for 15 or more years have a 30% increased risk of breast cancer. We already know that black women have the highest occurrence of breast cancer before reaching the age of 40 and are more likely than white women to develop a highly aggressive breast cancers and are more likely to die from it at any age, 40% more likely to be precise. Over 552 million shampoo bottles are thrown away every year, and as you know, these are exclusively plastic. The bottles are plastic are problematic for a number of reasons, mainly because they are made from non-renewable resources. Shampoo and conditioner bottles, like all plastics, are made from crude oil and take hundreds if not thousands of years to break down. Unilever is recalling dry shampoo aerosol products sold nationwide because they may contain elevated levels of benzene, a known human carcinogen. The recall is the latest of half a dozen so far this year, with the cancer-causing chemicals showing up in products.